Missouri Tigers are preparing for their biggest game of the year against the Alabama Crimson Tide in the SEC Championship. We have a team of reporters covering the game in both Atlanta and Tuscaloosa. But first, let's send it over to KOMUH's Jim Reek and Rachel Whittle in Atlanta to start our Mizzou Extra coverage.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the beginning of our 2014 SEC Championship game coverage from Atlanta, Georgia. Downtown Atlanta behind us, the Georgia Dome about 200 yards in front of me, and the Centennial Olympic Park just off to our left, alongside KOMU8's Rachel Whittle. And you've been talking to the Atlanta chapter of the Mizzou Alumni Association?
Right, the Mizzou Atlanta chapter of the Alumni Association. I've talked to the president. He says this year's SEC champion turnout will increase at least 3 times. That's what they're expecting. So we're going to be at the Buckhead Saloon on Friday talking to alumni. And last year they were hoping to get, just 50 to 100, whereas this year they're expecting at least 350. Yeah. So it's going to be an exciting time, and we'll be over there live.
On Friday.
On Friday.
We have wall-to-wall coverage, and we're not only here in Atlanta. Let's join KOMU8's Jay Wallace. He is 187 miles off to my west in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Well, Missouri, I am here in SEC West territory, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, home of the Crimson Tide, and you can see their logo right behind me here at the front and center of Bryant-Denny Stadium. It is a beautiful one at that. And as you can also see, these plaques lined up behind me going towards the stadium, these are honoring the head coaches who have won national championships here at Alabama. And yeah, they do line up way past the camera as well. Now this one right next to me, this is honoring Coach Bear Bryant. Yeah, you've probably heard of him, when he won the national championship in 1979 and then later went on to have the stadium named after him. And now the school spirit that we've all heard about, it's omnipresent. Right before this live hit, somewhere in the distance, I don't know where, I heard a Roll Tide chant. These fans are obviously ready for Saturday's matchup. Now, I will be here tomorrow and Friday reporting on Alabama, giving you a little taste of what this city, school, and team are all about. Reporting live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, for Sports Extra, Jay Wallace, KOMU8 News. Now let's send it back to Atlanta.
Thank you, Jay. Well, folks, they might be the biggest difference makers in football, and make no mistake, turnovers will surely play a factor when Missouri and Alabama meet in the Georgia Dome on Saturday, and this is something Mizzou might hold an advantage in. If you look at the past 5 years, if you look at Alabama's turnover margin, that's combining their giveaways and their takeaways, most of the time the Tide have been positive, except for this year. Right now they have a turnover margin of -2, meaning they have turned the ball over 2 more times than taking it away from the other team. Meanwhile, winning the turnover battle has been a staple of Mizzou football, and this year is no different. The Tigers have forced 13 turnovers over their 6-game winning streak to bring them to a turnover margin of +9, which is actually the second best in the SEC.
You have 5 turnovers, you're probably not going to ever win a game. That's almost, especially when you're playing a good football team. It's not going to happen.
Turnovers win games, and it's not only on defense, it's also on offense. When we win the turnover margin, I think this year we've won every game. I think when we lost the turnover margin, we've lost. So it changes games.
Now, if you look closely at Mizzou's 2 losses this season, you'll notice something special. Those are the only 2 games that they had a negative turnover margin. So surely on Saturday they will be looking to win that so they can win the SEC championship. Reporting live in Atlanta for the Mizzou Extra, Tyler Griever, KOMU8 News.
Are looking to avenge last year's loss in the SEC championship, and they'll get another chance as they take on Alabama in this year's championship game this weekend. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brittany Pieper. We have a team of reporters in both Atlanta and Tuscaloosa covering the game from all angles, but we kick off our coverage with KOMUH's Jim Reek, who's down in Georgia. Jim?
Well, hello everyone in mid-Missouri, and welcome to downtown Atlanta, Georgia on this Thursday evening. Remember, we're an hour later at 6 o'clock here, 5 o'clock back in Missouri. The weather is nice and we're ready for some football. The 2014 SEC Championship game, Mizzou and Alabama in the Georgia Dome at 3 o'clock on Saturday. We've been here for about 24 hours. Let me just say this. We've run into some Georgia football fans. They're not bitter. They're not upset at the fact that the Tigers lost to Georgia 34-0. But on the flip side, they're not giving Mizzou any chance at all of beating Alabama. In fact, they're saying Mizzou won't even hang in against the Crimson Tide. So I guess Mizzou will have to get that RESPECT on the football field. Speaking of which, joining me, KOMU8's Tyler Griever. This is the fourth time I've covered a Tiger Conference Championship game. 8 years ago in San Antonio against Oklahoma. The Sooners win. The next year, the Sooners in Kansas City, that was even worse. Last year, Mizzou and Auburn here in Georgia, we know what happened. And who knows with Mizzou and Alabama.
That's why, Jim, a win on Saturday really might be the biggest in school history for Missouri, and it's those previous shortcomings you mentioned to capture something that's been elusive for the Tigers. Winning division titles is not an issue for Missouri.
You've won 5 divisional titles in the last 8 years, and you knew what was coming next.
It's eluded the Tigers for 54 years.
Can't you win a championship?
Fair question. Missouri has played in 3 conference championship games. The Tigers lost all 3 by double digits.
I think about it all the time. Yeah, so, and what are you going to do differently? There's no question about that. I think about all those things.
Things like costly turnovers and a porous defense.
What it comes down to is Mizzou going to beat Mizzou, or are we going to beat Alabama?
Pinkel says the team's experience in must-win games will help this year.
You know, last year you take the A&M championship game, you take the SEC championship game, you take the Cotton Bowl in that environment. We had to play another championship game this year and win it if we want to get in it. And so we've been in a lot of big environments, so hopefully we can play better in this type of environment and I can coach better.
Maybe then the division title celebrations can be ditched in favor of a conference one. Now, Jim, it's been a while since the Tigers got a conference title. They did share one back in 1969, but they haven't won one outright since 1960.
And they got a forfeited win against Kansas that year. So, all right, Tyler, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Just to give you an idea where we are, we're on the west edge of downtown Atlanta. CNN is behind me. The Georgia Dome is just ahead of me, about 200 yards. This is what's called Centennial Olympic Park. This is where the 1996 Olympics were played. Now I'm joined by KOMU8's Alex Brown just across the yard to revisit those Olympic Games.
I'm live at Olympic Park, where several of these statues and tributes still remain from those 1996 games. The one right behind me here depicts a gymnast doing a routine on top of a ring. I was able to walk through the park earlier this afternoon just to get a better understanding of what's in there. Like any major city, there's plenty of noise and chaos in Atlanta. That's why some people like to go to the park.
It's quiet for the most part. It gets you away from the city hustle, so it's nice.
The Olympic Committee created the 21-acre park to act as a center hub for the 96 games. And it was here that perhaps the most memorable moment happened.
I remember the bombing that happened, but that's all I remember.
A pipe bomb killed the peacefulness of those games. And more importantly, it killed 2 people while injuring 100 more. It even left this shrapnel reminder in one of the statues. And while the park is calm once more, the solemnness can still be felt.
Not many people talk about it.
Despite all the chaos that happened back then, the city still uses the park pretty often today. Gunn says that they recently decorated for Christmas and that it looks beautiful when it's lit up at night. Reporting live from Atlanta for the Mizzou Extra, Alex Brown, KOMU8 News. Now, Mizzou is new to the SEC, but they're not new to the championship game. We're going to send it over to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where Mary Kate Burgess is live to tell us more about what Bama fans really think of Mizzou.
Guys, we are live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, home of the Crimson Tide, who are pretty much SEC royalty when it comes to college football. Now, we are in front of Denny Chimes, which is on the quad here at Tuscaloosa, pretty much like the quad back in Columbia, but minus the columns. Now, Mizzou is the new kid on the block here in the SEC, but in just 3 years, they've won back-to-back SEC East titles. But what does that really mean? I decided to walk around campus today and ask a few Alabama fans what they thought and if they were worried.
Well, you know, Missouri is new to the conference, but they're certainly not new to the SEC championship game. And the SEC fans respect winners, respect quality football.
It's a little shocking, honestly, especially with them being new to the SEC division. I mean, I kind of was hoping it was going to be Georgia.
Now, for the most part, Alabama fans have been somewhat impressed with Mizzou's performance, but they are not worried about the outcome on Saturday. Now, coming up at 6, 9, and 10, we'll give you more exclusive coverage from Tuscaloosa. But for now, reporting live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama for the Sports Extra, Mary Kate Burgess, KOMU 8 News.
All right, we'll have more from Alabama and Georgia later on in the news.
Tiger fans are starting to arrive. We're live at the SEC Championship game. KOMU 8 News at 6 from Atlanta starts now.
The Mizzou football team is just 2 days away from its showdown with the Alabama Crimson Tide in the SEC Championship game. Good evening, I'm Brittany Pieper. We have reporters in both Atlanta and Tuscaloosa tonight with team coverage of the big game, but we'll start our team coverage with Jim Reek in Atlanta.
Brittany, thank you very much. We're starting to see a few Tiger fans. We're starting to see a few Alabama fans. Not really as many as I was expecting, but what we are seeing and hearing are Georgia fans. They're not bitter, and they do acknowledge the fact that Missouri is here for the second straight SEC championship game. But on the flip side, they're not giving Mizzou any chance whatsoever of beating Alabama in the Georgia Dome Saturday afternoon. Last night, I got an email from the SEC. The conference is very concerned about counterfeit tickets for this football game. I then put one of our reporters, Rachel Whittle, on the story, and she joins me over my back left shoulder at the ticket office at the Georgia Dome to tell us what the story is all about. Rachel.
Fans are rushing to get their hands on one of these as game day approaches, and the SEC and Georgia Dome are warning fans about fake tickets. I spoke with officials today, and they told me what sets these actual championship tickets apart from scams.
There are no digital tickets, there are no PDF tickets, there are no Ticketmaster stock tickets. All of the tickets will look just like this for all 72,000 seats.
Special designs on this year's SEC Championship ticket set them apart from counterfeits. Here's what you need to know. Make sure the ticket is textured. The SEC logo should be a hologram. The front and back of the ticket should be printed in full color, and no ticket should have the same barcode as another. So when you get your ticket, run your finger over the white print to make sure that it's raised, and then tilt your ticket back and forth to see the word Southeastern Conference show up in the SEC logo.
Really, at all big events, there's lots of counterfeits, but especially at our event, because of the high demand for tickets, we see hundreds and hundreds of counterfeit tickets every year.
The best way to find out if a ticket is real is to get it checked.
If you are walking around downtown and someone approaches you about buying tickets and you think it's a good deal, have that person walk with you to the ticket validation window before you purchase tickets. If that person won't walk with you or don't want to go have the ticket validated, that should be a red flag to you.
The ticket validation window moved this year because of construction on the south side of the Georgia Dome. So now it's on the north side. Maybe you can see it a little bit behind me. There are some gates there. It opens this Saturday, game day at 10 a.m. Reporting live from the Georgia Dome for the Mizzou Extra, Rachel Whittle, KOMU 8 News. And now we will send it right back over to Jim Reek.
Rachel, thank you very much. All right, let's talk football now. And Amari Cooper, by far the standout player for Alabama this year, Heisman Trophy candidate. But when was the last time Alabama didn't have a good running back?
That's a great question, Jim. The Tide have been producing good running backs for a while now, and this year's starter, TJ Yeldon, just had his best game of the season. Against Auburn, the junior ran for 127 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was his first 100-yard rushing performance since October 18th against Texas A&M, and it tied him with Sean Alexander and another Alabama running back for the most 100-yard rushing performances in Alabama history. So he could break that against Mizzou on Saturday. The Tiger players and coaches know the challenge that the Tiger running back will bring.
It scares the hell out of me. And actually not just him, number 27, I think his name's Henry. It's a very explosive offense. And it's not only is it talent-laden, it's also very scheme-laden.
We got a lot of good running backs, too, so we being athletic, too. At Mizzou, we love this. We live for games like this.
Now, Jim, over this winning streak, Mizzou's only been allowing about 99 rushing yards per game. Nobody's run for 100 rushing yards on them during that streak. Something's kind of got to give here with the hot streak that Yeldon's on coming off the Iron Bowl.
It will be a challenge for the Tigers, not only to stop the running game, but of course also Amari Cooper.
Yeah, that'll be a big challenge.
Tyler, thank you very much. All right, we're not only live here in Atlanta, we're live 187 miles to the west. That's 187 in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. KOMUH Jay Wallace joins us live at a Bear Bryant office replica.
Well, Missouri, we're back here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, this time at the Paul W. Bryant Museum, and I'm here with the director, Ken Gaddy. And Ken, tell me a little bit about what we're in front of right here.
Well, we're in the reproduction of Coach Bryant's office. This is actual furniture from his office. Now, I want to point out the couch. Now, that may be something people say, why that? But when the former players come back, they're all drawn to that couch because they say if you were sitting on that, you were in trouble. So usually it was 5:30 in the morning, and you called his office. I've actually had two want to climb over and see if their legs were cut off because they sink so low down on that couch.
Sounds like a place you don't want to be. And tell me, what is the importance of having a museum like this? What's the importance of it?
Well, football's so big here in Alabama, so they thought we need something year-round. Actually, the original idea came from Coach Bryant, and it's not only a recruiting tool for football players, but for all athletes and really for students in general. So when they have a visiting faculty or recruiting new faculty, recruiting new students, this is one of the places they bring them on campus.
Yeah, and so one-word answer, Ken. Who wins Saturday, Mizzou or Bama?
I think it'll be fairly tight early, but Alabama's going to win.
All right, there you go. You can hear more from Ken and more about the Paul W. Bryant Museum tonight at 10. Reporting live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama for Sports Extra, Jay Wallace, KOMU8 News.
Good evening, I'm Brittany Pieper. The countdown is on. It's now just 2 days until the Tigers take on Alabama in the SEC championship game. We have reporters spread across the heart of SEC country. We begin our coverage with KOMU8's Jim Reek, who is live outside the Georgia Dome in Atlanta. Hey, Jim.
Brittany, thank you very much. During the dinner break, we decided to play, the Channel 8 crew decided to play the what-if game. What if Missouri wins? What if Missouri loses? What if Missouri wins, but then this, and this happen? And I mean, there are at least 100 different combinations of what could happen. I think the bottom line is, if you're a Missouri fan, the Tigers need to win and then let the chips fall where they fall. But there are a lot of different combinations of what could happen from the outcome of this SEC championship game starting at 3 o'clock Saturday here at the Georgia Dome behind me. I will say this, there are a lot of SEC fans here in the Georgia area. They're very concerned about Missouri winning because they feel that if the Tigers win, then there is no chance for an SEC team to win the national championship. You think about it, if Missouri wins, they might not make the playoffs, and if Missouri wins, they might knock Alabama out of contention. With more on that story, I am joined by KOMU8's Rachel Whittle, who is at the Sky Lounge downtown at the Glen Hotel. Rachel.
I'm at Sky Lounge, which is the rooftop bar and highest level here at the Glen Hotel with a great view of the city behind me. Now, it's actually right down the street from the Georgia Dome and Restaurant Row, which is a popular spot for SEC game days here. Now, Restaurant Row is a stretch that is always ready for SEC fans. I spoke with the executive general manager of Legacy Restaurant Partners, which owns Restaurant Row and surrounding hotels. He told me Alabama fans are probably less likely to make the trip to Atlanta this year.
Alabama's definitely going to be the favorite for the closer proximity. We still think there'll be probably more Alabama fans than Missouri fans, but we don't think the amount of people are going to come that typically would in years past. They're going to look at spending their money on one of the playoff games that'll follow the SEC championship, because I think they're pretty confident they're going to come home with a victory.
Even if Alabama fans do travel less in hopes of a championship win, Troy Landry and other fans say there is no comparison when it comes to SEC atmosphere here in Atlanta.
Teams that are in that conference, the fans of SEC teams, it is definitely like no other.
It really keeps us going when we have that kind of energy. It's like we don't get tired. We really excited and we just get into the spirit of the games.
Here yet, but that will all change tomorrow. SEC Fanfare opens tomorrow afternoon, and then the Mizzou Alumni Association, the Atlanta chapters, also hosting a party. We're going to go live from both of those locations. For now, reporting live with the Mizzou Extra, Rachel Whittle, KOMU8 News, and now we'll send you over to KOMU8's Jay Wallace with a look at Tuscaloosa's special hotspots.
Go. Welcome back to Tuscaloosa, everyone. Well, back in Columbia, there are certain restaurants that have a special relationship with the city and Mizzou. Now, this restaurant right here, this has a unique connection with this city and the Crimson Tide.
They're all like this.
When you eat at Dreamland Barbecue, one of Alabama's most famous restaurants, you're getting more than just a taste of Southern ribs.
As they franchise the company itself, when you think of Alabama football, don't you think of Dreamland Barbecue? When you think of Dreamland Barbecue, don't think of Alabama football. So like I said, so those two do go hand in hand because like I said, it's right here in town. And like I said, this is where they come to eat.
Back in 1958, John Big Daddy Bishop opened this restaurant, which was also the first year Paul Bear Bryant started coaching at Alabama. Willie Gardner, the head pit cooker, has been working at Dreamland for about 7 years now and actually worked with Bishop's oldest son, Bobby Bishop.
Me stressing the tradition part of it is so important to me because like I said, the people who showed me is the ones who started it.
And just like all the Alabama fans here in Tuscaloosa, Willie isn't one bit surprised his Crimson Tide have made it this far.
I don't know how they, you know what I'm saying, haven't won 7 straight championships since he's been here. You see what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's not surprising at all that, you know what I'm saying, Bama's going back to the SEC championship. Like, who didn't think Bama wasn't going to go at the beginning of the season?
Now, I had some of these ribs, and Kansas City, don't be mad at me, but Alabama barbecue might give you a run for your money. Now, going from the food change to the football field, I'll be back later in the show to tell you how closely Nick Saban is paying attention to those Missouri Tigers. Reporting live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama for Mizzou Extra, Jay Wallace, KOMU 8 News.
All right, thanks, Jay. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Brittany Pieper. Mizzou is looking to capture its first SEC championship after falling short last year. We have reporters spread across the SEC to cover the Tigers' march to the title. We begin with KOMUH's Jim Reek, who's live in Atlanta at the site of the showdown on Saturday.
Brittany, thank you very much. A very quiet and peaceful Thursday evening here in downtown Atlanta, Georgia. That is the Georgia Dome behind me. That's where it will all be settled Saturday afternoon, Mizzou and Alabama. You know, with the win over Arkansas, the Tigers got some admiration. They got some respect from their fans. But you travel to the deep south here, and even though the Georgia football fans acknowledge the fact that the Tigers have made it to their second straight SEC championship game, there seems to be a lack of R-E-S-P-E-C-T here in Atlanta, Georgia when you talk about the Tiger football team. Joining me, KOMU8's Andrew Kaufman, and tell us about the role the Tigers have played as underdogs.
That's right. You would think that this Missouri Tiger team that's riding a 10-game road winning streak would start gaining some national recognition, but the Southeastern Conference is an entirely different animal.
There are lots of dogs in the SEC, but none like Missouri.
Everybody's against us. You can see that every week.
Missouri has been an underdog in its last 3 games, even though the Tigers had the better record going into all of them.
I don't do the underdog thing, with our players. I don't do that.
But we really don't pay attention to them at all. We go out there, and if it's an underdog situation, then it's an underdog situation. We go out and we play football.
The end zone, Cooper got it, touchdown, Bama.
But this game is a bit different.
As far as college football is concerned, this is Title Town.
They're the best team in the country right now. And we know we got a big challenge in front of us.
And the stakes couldn't be higher.
What a marvelous year.
We love that here in Missouri. We live for games like that. That's why we built our program up to be able to play in big games like this. So that ain't going to scare us or they ain't going to affect us at all. We're going to be hyped and we're just going to go out there and play good.
This week, the Tigers are 2 touchdown underdogs against the #1 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. And the last time Missouri was favored in a game, you go back more than a month ago, home against Kentucky.
Kentucky. All right. Andrew, thank you very much. We go from Andrew Kaufman to Andrew Young. He was the former mayor of Atlanta, a congressman, ambassador to the UN. This is the street that we're located on. It's called Andrew Young Boulevard. It's a happening place. You've got the Georgia Dome here. You've got the home of the Atlanta Hawks, the home of CNN. And right across the street from CNN is the Mecca of college football. That's where we join KOMU8's Alex Brown.
I'm live outside the new College Football Hall of Fame. It's just right down the road from the Georgia Dome. It opened up back here in August and has already attracted a ton of football fans because it's got some pretty cool stuff.
Welcome
the College Football Hall of Fame.
Perhaps the coolest new place to visit in Atlanta, the College Football Hall of Fame. It's a 3-story interactive look at the sport, and everyone's invited.
Yeah, we invite all of the visiting coaches. If someone's playing Georgia, Georgia Tech, Morehouse, Clark, even the Falcons, we invite everyone to come down.
It all starts here.
The wall behind me is our helmet wall, which has over 768 helmets on that wall. That's every college in the United States.
And joining it,
we have a 45-yard indoor football field where you can practice your kicking and go through our skill zone.
And that's just the first floor. The second and third give visitors an interactive look at those whose careers paid off with an induction.
Definitely a lot of emotions. You know, we've seen generations come in, a grandfather, father, and son, and, you know, they're all expressing, you know, just how important college football is to them. And just reliving those wonderful days when they played. So you see a lot of emotion. I've seen people sit at our terminals for 4 hours just reading through everything.
The hall is open every day during the week up until about 5 o'clock, sometimes even a little bit later. Tickets cost about $20 for adults. And for Mizzou fans that come down here and want to stop by, make sure you wear your Mizzou logo because they'll give you a free shirt this weekend. Reporting live in Atlanta for the Mizzou Extra, Alex Brown, KOMU 8 News. Now, Mizzou, they may be new to the SEC, so they're not quite as dominant as some other teams, but back-to-back SEC East championships certainly does help. We're going to go to Mary Kate Burgess live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where she's got more about what dominance means
Guys,
to
we're
Alabama.
in front of Bryant-Denny Stadium, home of the Crimson Tide. Now, maintaining dominance in the SEC is pretty hard to do, but Alabama has a rich winning history, something that's been spreading over generations. But when did this dynasty really begin? With this man right behind me, Coach Bear Bryant. Now, Bear Bryant returned to his alma mater in 1958. He led them to, just as he led them to national championships as a player, he vowed to do the same as a coach. He was a coach here for 25 years, and in those 25 years, he won 13 SEC championships and 6 national titles. I talked to one Alabama fan who said Bear Bryant was the saving grace for the state of Alabama at the time.
Also, he was successful during a time when there was not a lot else to be proud of in Alabama. We had the civil rights movement going on, and during that time we were winning football games, so it was something positive for Alabama to be attached to. So it was a very positive thing going on at a time of turmoil.
Now, Nick Saban is still continuing that winning legacy today, and we will continue coverage later on tomorrow. No, but for now, reporting live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama for the Mizzou Extra, Mary Kate Burgess, KOMU 8 News.
Mizzou's biggest game of the year is now less than 24 hours away. We're almost here, folks. We have reporters tackling the story from all angles. As the SEC Championship approaches, we have reporters in Atlanta and Tuscaloosa. We begin with KOMU 8's Jim Reek and Chris Trevino in Atlanta. Hey, guys.
Paige, thank you very much. Chris Trevino, welcome to Atlanta, GA, and the 2014 SEC Championship game. You made it.
I made it. Good to be here again. It's nice to be in familiar territory after our first trip a year ago with Missouri.
We have some video of the Tigers leaving Columbia today. They were a little bit late, a few issues here and there, but the bottom line is we saw the Tigers here just about a half hour ago out on the playing field.
Right. They just got here an hour later than scheduled, but no problem. They just walked through the playing field. It's no practice. They were here for 15 minutes just to get an idea of the surroundings. And, of course, again, the good news is many of the Tiger players have been here before just a year ago.
And just to show you the difference, Nick Saban actually put his team through a little bit of a workout, and Gary Pinkel just said, okay, guys, walk around the field, do a lap or two, and let's get out of here.
And that's par for the course. Missouri on the road really does not even go to the stadium usually for a walkthrough. This was more of an obligation, I believe, to the Southeastern Conference to make an appearance here.
Right. Chris Trevino, we'll talk to you in a few minutes.
Okay, Jim.
All right, I am joined by KOMU 8's Andrew Kaufman. And Andrew, once again, the line in this game, 14.5-point favorite, Alabama. Missouri has pretty much been the underdog all year.
Yeah, you would think that a team like Missouri that's coming in, riding a 10-game road winning streak would start gaining some national recognition. But if you look at the college football rankings, they're ranked 16th, and that's good for 5th best in the SEC. That has a lot of Missouri Tiger fans upset, including former Mizzou wideout TJ Moe. He tweeted this, saying, Mizzou at 16, what? Can we call for a revote for people who know what they're talking about?
But this really shouldn't come too much of a surprise to Missouri fans. The Tigers have been an underdog in their last 3 games, even though
the Tigers of Missouri.
Last year, the Tigers went from the SEC championship game to the Cotton Bowl. But where will Missouri land this season?
We're focusing on playing our best game. I'm not going to get involved with those kind of things.
But we can. If the Tigers beat Bama in the SEC championship game, then there is still hope to make the college football playoff. But it's unlikely. They'll need Iowa State to take down TCU, Kansas State to beat Baylor, and Wisconsin over Ohio State. And the Tigers still might need more help. Here's what's more likely for Mizzou. If the Tigers get past the Tide, they'll automatically qualify for either the Fiesta Bowl, Peach Bowl, Orange Bowl, or Cotton Bowl, no matter what the other teams do. Now here's worst case scenario for Missouri. A loss to Alabama will most likely put them into one of these 4 bowls: the Citrus Bowl, the Outback Bowl, the Music City Bowl, or the TaxSlayer.com Bowl.
And the celebration well underway.
Only one thing's for sure.
A second straight trip to Atlanta for the SEC championship game.
And the Tigers will be traveling for the holidays. Now, I talked with players and coaches back at SEC Media Days in July. All of them pretty much expected at least 2 SEC teams in the college football playoff. But, Jim, at this rate, if Missouri wins, there might not be any.
All right, Andrew, thank you very much. We're not only live here at the Dome, but KOMU8's Rachel Whittle is live at the Buckhead Saloon about 10 miles north of here, and she has a special guest from the Mizzou Alumni Association. Rachel.
We are live at the Buckhead Saloon. It is the official Mizzou Alumni Association party here. We have Atlanta Chapter President Chad Bozarth here. He put this whole thing together. What is it like being president for 2 years in a row, back-to-back SEC championships?
You know, it's been hugely successful for our chapter. Last year we had several hundred people come, and you know, knowing that we're coming back this year, we were able to promote it, take advantage of everybody coming into town, and hopefully raise a little bit money for our scholarship funds of Mizzou Atlanta.
Right, and you said this is a big increase from last year. So you think by the end of the night we're going to have 800 people walk through here?
Yeah, I think so. We probably had 600 to 700 last year, and you know, at one time probably about 350 to 400, and we were able to do a lot more promoting this year via social media, the Alumni Association, and other avenues. And actually, a funny story, I met 3 guys from St. Louis and asked them how they had heard about our watch party. A lady at a local mall told them about it. They didn't know anything about it until the lady at the mall told them about our watch party. So it's getting out there, which is fantastic.
That is so great. I also talked to someone from St. Louis who is a teacher too, and he said that he just found out from a friend. So I really appreciate you joining us here today. I really hope you have a great time tonight. We are going to send it over to Tuscaloosa with KOMU8's Mary Kate Burgess. She has a story about a courageous young woman. We are live from the Buckhead Saloon with the Mizzou Extra. Rachel Whittle, KOMU8 News.
Guys, we're in front of the Delta Zeta Sorority House in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Why? Because of a courageous young woman who taught me to appreciate the little things in life.
It's like I have something to look forward to.
For Corbin Weil, the University of Alabama isn't just her school, it's a family affair.
I actually have 3 older sisters, and they all 3 came here.
But there is one thing setting her apart from her sisters. She's fighting a rare form of tissue cancer for a second time. And through it all, the University of Alabama has been a constant bright spot through the dark times.
Coming back here and going to school and doing everything, it's something that I wanted to do, and so it's kind of helped me live my life and want to keep going and keep being normal and keep doing normal stuff.
It hasn't always been the university helping Weil. One of its biggest rivals, Auburn, helped her as well. She met Auburn student Kayla Perry through Facebook and cancer treatments, creating a close relationship.
It's nice to have her. She knows what I'm going through, and I know kind of what she's going through, and it's nice to have that support system where we can both talk to each other and just...
And even though she has bigger things to worry about, football will always be a big part of Weil's life.
It's something to look forward to, and it's something to be serious about, but not serious about.
She isn't at all concerned about Saturday.
I think once they go up against Bama, it'll show where they really stand.
Now, as for right now, Corbin's cancer is stable, but there is no cure, and she is not pursuing experimental treatments. After our interview yesterday, she gave me this bracelet. It's from Kayla's charity, and it says, "No one fights alone." Reporting live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama for the Mizzou Sports Extra, Mary Kate Burgess, KOMU 8 News.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to KOMU 8 News at 9 o'clock on Mid-Missouri's CW. Jim Rake alongside Chris Trevino. We are live at the Georgia Dome in Atlanta, getting ready for tomorrow's SEC championship game between the Tigers and the Crimson Tide. Chris, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. Looking forward to a football game tomorrow.
During the dinner break, we talked about two things. Missouri put up 42 points last year against Auburn. I think if they put up 42 points tomorrow, they're going to get a win.
I would think so. I'd expect this to be a much lower scoring game than that was a year ago, and that bodes well for Missouri, a lower scoring game because of the strength of its defense, and we just haven't seen any really offensive eruptions, of course, much throughout the season.
Each school got an allotment of 16,000 tickets. How come Alabama will literally own this stadium tomorrow?
Well, obviously the Crimson Tide has a long history here in the SEC, and Tuscaloosa much closer to Atlanta than Columbia is, so their fans really know how to play the game. In other words, Mike Alden, Missouri's athletic director, was telling us there are a lot of season ticket SEC championship game holders, if you will, people who get the tickets for this game every year, regardless of what school they root for. And when their school's not available, they're looking to dish off those tickets. And Alabama, being an older school in the SEC, their fans, rabid as they are, know how to get a hold of these tickets and those folks from other schools.
Okay, Chris, thank you very much. Coming in, and Andrew Kaufman. Andrew, we had the press conference today with the two head coaches. It was obvious that the two coaches had nice things to say about each other.
Yeah, and that's the Tigers and the Crimson Tide have only met once since Missouri joined the SEC, but the relationship between these two coaches goes way further back than that. Let's flash back more than 40 years ago, when Gary Pinkel and Nick Saban were teammates at Kent State.
Well, I vividly remember talking about coaching and how he was interested in doing it, and I was interested in doing it, and just kind of funny how things work out.
After finishing their time on the field, they moved to the sidelines and began their coaching careers under Kent State's head coach, Don James.
Well, he had tremendous influence on me. We all know that. I think Nick certainly speaks very highly of Coach James also.
But just last year, Coach James died.
You know, I loved him, and feel very fortunate, and I'm sure Nick would say the same thing, that he was a very significant part of my life.
Now his legacy lives on through two of his brightest students.
To win at the level he's winning at consistently, I think it's unprecedented.
Coach Pinkel, Gary, has done a very, very good job there.
So Saturday will be a tribute to their shared mentor.
He'll be watching from heaven, he'll be rooting for me. I know that, because he always liked me better.
Believe it or not, Coach Gary Pinkel actually has 9 more wins than Nick Saban.
All right, Andrew, thank you very much. There is a brand new Georgia Dome being built just outside the door. That's where we join KOMU 8's Alex Brown with the story.
I'm live at the construction site of the new Atlanta Stadium. The Georgia World Congress Center and the Falcons own this new one, and so as a result, it's right next door to the Georgia Dome. Now, construction began back in May of this year. Officials say they expect to be ready by 2017 when they anticipate their current lease with the Georgia Dome to expire. That's one reason why they want to build this new one. Georgia World Congress officials told me they want the new stadium to attract marquee events such as a Super Bowl, a Final Four, and even a World Cup. They also told me the Georgia Dome would be torn down after the $1 billion new Atlanta Stadium was finished. Now, the Georgia Dome will be about 25 years old once 2017 rolls around. It's not real young, but it's not real old either. Another goal of the new stadium is to attract more attention to Atlanta as a national icon. Now, I had a chance to speak with one Atlanta resident earlier tonight who does not share that same sentiment.
Well, I'm a fan of modernizing and things like that, but there's also something deeper about sports and tradition and all of that. And I think every time you have a new stadium, a new place, actually you're resetting tradition and you're starting over. And
the Atlanta Braves are also moving locations soon. They're going to be moving up to the north side of the city. They expect their new stadium to be done in 2017 as well. Reporting live in Atlanta for the Mizzou Extra, Alex Brown, KOMU 8 News. Now, we all know the University of Alabama as the Crimson Tide, but why is their mascot an elephant? Well, we're going to go live to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to KOMU8's Mary Kate Burgess, who tells us what's the deal.
Guys, we are in front of Coleman Coliseum, home to many of Alabama's sports such as basketball and volleyball. Now, the Alabama is known as the Crimson Tide, but then why is their mascot an elephant? In the 1930s, sports journalist writer Everett Strooper of the Atlanta Journal described the Alabama-Mississippi State game he had witnessed earlier. He described the Alabama linemen as big, brutish elephants and continues to call them big red elephants throughout the season. Now, I talked with one of the mascots earlier today about what being Big Al means to him, and he said that being able to do all of the charity work has been the most rewarding. I caught the mascots earlier today as they were loading up the bus to go to Atlanta, and I can personally tell you that everyone in Tuscaloosa is ready for the big game tomorrow, and you can bet that Big Al will be on the sidelines rooting for the Crimson Tide. For now, reporting from Tuscaloosa, Alabama for the Mizzou Extra, Mary Kate Burgess, KOMU8 News. Now, let's send it back to the studio with Shay McAllister.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to KOMU8 News at 10 o'clock. We're live from Atlanta, Georgia. The Georgia Dome and the 2014 SEC Championship game kicks off tomorrow, 3 o'clock, Missouri and Alabama. I am joined by KOMU8's Rachel Whittle. She is outside the Dome at SEC Fanfare. And I'm also joined by KOMU8's Jay Wallace. He is 187 miles away in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We'll get to the reporters in a second, but first, let's bring in KOMU8's Chris Trevino to talk about this matchup tomorrow.
Well, we've talked a lot about it this week, and we're finally less than 24 hours away, but both teams have arrived. Alabama had a little bit of a practice here this afternoon. Missouri, much later in the day, really just had a walkthrough, just literally walked through the Dome onto the field to get a little bit of a feel of the surroundings. Of course, the Tigers were here a year ago, but they just kind of keep this like a regular road trip, Missouri. Get in late afternoon, go to the stadium here in this case today, and then just have a few meetings and take it easy at the hotel and focus in on the game tomorrow.
Today at the press conference, Gary Pinkel said in a couple little ways it will help the fact that Mizzou was here last year.
I would think so. Obviously, they suffered a loss to Auburn in that game, but just to be on this stage, and it is a grand stage as we'll see tomorrow, I think the atmosphere at least should not wow them. They've just got to be sure that Alabama doesn't wow them with their play.
Okay, Chris, thank you very much. Also at that press conference today, Nick Saban, the Alabama coach, was talking about how the defensive ends, Shane Ray and Marcus Golden, can just be so disruptive for a team's offense. KOMU8's Tyler Graver is here to talk about one of those two defensive ends.
Jim, there's a lot of good leaders on this Missouri football team. To get to a stage like this, you need that great leadership. But trust me, folks, none of them are quite like Marcus Golden.
He's the team leader here. You know, we have a great group of seniors and captains, but there's no question about it. He carries a big stick around here.
For Marcus Golden, it's not just about being a leader. It's about being a leader here.
He always wanted to come to Missouri. That was his deal. He really wanted that.
All means a lot. It's a blessing to be a leader at Mizzou, man. This is a big program. This is a big deal program.
To see how much it means to him, all you need to do is watch.
He just brings the fire that you see on the field. You know, his intensity level, he demands that out of everybody. And with a guy like that, you can't help but just give your all every Saturday.
You see him running all over the field, making a lot of plays and getting all excited, and I think that just builds up everyone around him.
You can't be a leader if you ain't doing the same thing you want everybody else to do. So any leader will tell you that. You got to lead by example to be a leader.
Lately, he's been setting a ridiculous example. In the past 3 games, Golden has nearly doubled his sack total and made the play to send Missouri to Atlanta.
What a moment for Marcus Golden and the Missouri seniors.
He's raised his level from good to great. You know, just been unbelievable, relentless.
A relentlessness to get his team here and to bring it a championship. Now, earlier in the week, Jim, Missouri defensive coordinator Dave Steckel was saying that not only Marcus Golden but Shane Ray are really the emotional pulse of this team. And if you ever watch these guys, they feed off of each other on the field. I saw them walking arm in arm together through the tunnel today. They've really just been the driving force of this Missouri football team.
If they can get Alabama into 3rd and 8s and 3rd and 10s and 3rd and 12s, a lot of good things could happen.
It changes the complexion of the game completely.
All right, Tyler, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
The SEC Championship game is more than just about football. It's sort of like a family affair. KOMU8's Rachel Whittle is outside the Dome with a look at Fanfare.
I'm live outside the Georgia World Congress Center where SEC Fanfare wrapped up a couple hours ago. Fans young and old tossed around footballs and listened to former players being interviewed. While Fanfare is full of fun and games, one official told me that this is the one place SEC fans become family, even among Mizzou and Alabama fans. The first day of Fanfare is usually not its biggest event. But there's no mistaking game day excitement.
It's really exciting, way better than it was in the Big 12.
The SEC, unlike a lot of places, comes together. They play tough against each other during the year. But at this event, they come together, and one will come out the champion, and they'll all be behind that champion wherever they go.
Robbie Robertson's company runs SEC events, so if he calls Fanfare a family affair, then we could say Alabama is the big brother in this championship. Alabama has 27 SEC titles, and fans have to keep track of how many title games they've been to.
Championship 3.
And as Mizzou plays in the championship a second time around, maybe the little brother is growing up.
I'm kind of worried about this game. Mizzou's got a good team. You know, you got to give it to those guys.
Robbie Robertson also told me the SEC Nation's presence is a big enhancement at Fanfare this year. He said to look out for Mizzou celebrities tomorrow if you're traveling in from Columbia, like Michael Sam and TJ Moe. They'll be at Fanfare tomorrow. Reporting live for the Mizzou Extra, Rachel Whittle, KOMU8 News, and now we will send you over to Tuscaloosa, where KOMU8's Jay Wallace is live with a look at why that city has a special connection to Mid-Missouri.
Well, Rachel, back in May of 2011, as many of you know, a devastating tornado hit Joplin, impacting hundreds of thousands of lives. And since then, the city has worked to rebuild and reconstruct that city. And just a month before that tornado hit, another tornado hit Tuscaloosa. But just like Joplin, that tornado showed Tuscaloosa's true colors and brought the city together. Patton Realty was one of many Tuscaloosa businesses impacted by the 2011 tornado.
By the time I got there at the hospital, there were some things missing, a lot of stuff missing, and then when I went under the viaduct there, my building was missing.
Luckily for Patton, there was a nice surprise under the debris.
All of our files and folders right over here, and they were completely full when this was over with, and we were very grateful for that.
Storm tragedies such as this one can create a sense of support in communities. Pat noticed this from her Crimson Tide.
Our football team at the time was with the cleanup and help that they gave, and how they brought together a community, and how they were brought together by the efforts that they made.
Even in the wake of this tornado, that didn't stop Patton from appreciating a witty moment from a random helper. Patton also mentioned that one of her agents worked with Nick Saban's sons to rebuild houses as a part of Habitat for Humanity. And just like many of the people here in Tuscaloosa, she gave me a roll tide before I left. Thanks for sticking with us here in Tuscaloosa. We'll be in Atlanta tomorrow for SEC Championship coverage. Reporting live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama for Mizzou Extra, Jay Wallace, KOMU8 News. Now let's pitch it back to the studio.